The past year has been a very difficult one for the global economy. Europe is in recession. Most emerging markets are growing very slowly. It has been a difficult year for India also. Both global and domestic factors have affected our growth. We need to address the impact of both. My government has responded to the situation by taking several measures to revive investment activity and investor sentiment. An important initiative that my government has taken is the rollout of the direct benefit transfer system. This would enable government-sponsored benefits such as scholarships, pensions and maternity benefits to flow directly into the accounts of beneficiaries who can access them using their Aadhaar numbers. In due course, the direct benefit transfer system will also cover wages, subsidies on food and LPG. This system will help cut down leakages, bring millions of people into the financial system and lead to better targeting of beneficiaries. It will be a trendsetter in the use of modern technology to bring benefits to our poorest citizens, especially in rural areas. However, the direct benefit transfer system will not be a substitute for public services and will be complementary to the public distribution system. Honourable members, the average annual growth rate of GDP in the 11th plan, which concluded last year, was 8%. A notable feature of the plan was the progress towards achieving inclusiveness with a faster decline in poverty than in the previous decade. The National Development Council has recently adopted the 12th five-year plan, which further sharpens the focus on faster, more inclusive and sustainable growth. The 12th plan recognizes that growth outcomes will depend upon the extent to which we are able to take some difficult decisions. The plan proposes to consolidate centrally sponsored schemes into a smaller number and increase their flexibility. This will give states the much needed freedom to experiment and innovate. The Indian economy is currently experiencing slower growth. Real GDP grew by 5.4% in the first half of the current fiscal year. This is significantly lower than the average of around 8% in the last decade. Our slower growth is the consequence of a combination of global and domestic factors. My government is taking steps to deal with the factors responsible for the slowdown. Inflation is easing gradually, but is still a problem. In recent months, there have been positive developments too. There has been a moderation in core inflation and recovery in growth is likely. Policy measures announced during the year have also restored optimism at home and abroad. My government has announced a roadmap for fiscal consolidation by containing the current year's fiscal deficit at 5.3% of the GDP. The government is also working with state governments to reach a consensus on the goods and service tax. Honourable members, there is reason for cheer on the agricultural front. The growth in agriculture and allied sectors during the 11th plan was 3.7% compared to 2.4% in the 10th plan. I am proud to mention that the relentless efforts of farmers, coupled with the conducive policies of the government, have resulted in record food grain production for 2 consecutive years, with last year achieving a peak of 260 million tons. This year, despite erratic and deficient rainfall, it is projected that we will produce more than 250 million tons of food grains. Our food grain position is therefore comfortable. The total stock of food grains with the public sector agencies was 662 lakh tons on 1st of February 2013, including 307 lakh tons of wheat and over 353 lakh tons of rice. My government is committed to enacting the National Food Security Bill, having received the recommendations of the Standing Committee. Several specific initiatives have been undertaken under the Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana. Sugarcane and cotton production have touched record levels in 2011-12. My government will continue to lay emphasis on the development of rain-fed and degraded areas during the 12th five-year plan. An outlay of rupees 29,296 crore has been earmarked under the Integrated Watershed Management Program during the planned period. Horticulture production reached an all-time high of 251 million tons during 2011-12. The year 2012-13 has been declared as the year of horticulture. A national center for cold chain development has been set up to give a fillip to the cold chain sector. With 128 million tons of milk production in 2011-12, India continues to be the largest producer of milk in the world. In order to meet rapidly growing demand for milk, the government has approved the National Dairy Plan Phase 1, which will help meet the projected national demand of 150 million tons of milk by 2016-17. To give a further boost to food processing, my government has launched the National Mission on Food Processing. Construction of godowns is being promoted under public-private partnership mode. Storage capacity of about 181 lakh tons will be created over the next 2 years across the country, with additional storage space of 5.4 lakh tons in the northeast. The recently approved new investment policy for urea is expected to create nearly 100 lakh metric tons of additional production capacity in urea by 2017, making the country self-reliant in urea. Around 34 lakh hectares of irrigation potential was created under the Accelerated Irrigation Benefit Program during the 11th plan. During the 12th plan, an additional 87 lakh hectares of irrigation potential is planned to be created under the program. The new National Water Policy, adopted recently by the National Water Resource Council, emphasizes efficient use of water and the need to align planning for water resources with the challenge of climate change, equity, social justice and sustainability. Honorable members, the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme continues to break new grounds in my government's efforts to provide work to those who seek employment during times of hardship. Around 5 crore households were provided employment under the scheme in 2011-12. In order to make available improved housing of the rural poor, the government has substantially enhanced the assistance under Indira Awas Yojana by increasing it from rupees 45,000 to rupees 70,000 per unit in plain areas and from 48,500 to 75,000 per unit in hilly and difficult areas, including left-wing extremism affected areas. My government has recently introduced important official amendments to the Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Bill. I am confident that the law will be enacted. The next phase of the Jawaharlal Nehru Urban Renewal Mission is being finalized. Meanwhile, the tenure of the current mission has been extended until March 2014 for completion of ongoing projects and for sanction of new projects so as to maintain the momentum of the development of urban infrastructure. In order to give a push to the capacity building efforts of urban local bodies, the government has decided to create a separate fund of rupees 1,000 crore. My government proposes to extend the Rajiv Awas Yojana to all small and medium towns with a target of 1 million houses in the 12th plan. My government is giving priority to addressing the problems of contamination of sources of drinking water. During 2012-13, 5% of the National Rural Drinking Water Program Fund has been earmarked for allocation to states facing the problem. A rural water supply and sanitation project for low-income states estimated at nearly rupees 5,000 crore is being developed with the help of the World Bank to assist states that are lagging behind in the coverage of piped water supply. Recognizing its crucial role in reducing the burden of disease, my government has accorded increased priority to rural sanitation. The total sanitation campaign has been modified in the form of Nirmal Bharat Abhiyan with the goal of providing access to sanitation for all rural households by the year 2022. My government has recently increased the pension for widows and disabled beneficiaries under the Indira Gandhi National Widow Pension Scheme and Indira Gandhi National Disability Pension Scheme from rupees 200 to 300 per month. On attaining the age of 80 years, beneficiaries of both these schemes now migrate to Indira Gandhi National Old Age Pension Scheme, where they get a pension of rupees 500 per month. With a view to recognizing the contribution of street vendors and ensuring uniformity in the legal framework for street vending across states, the Street Vendors Protection of Livelihood and Regulation of the Street Vending Bill 2012 has been introduced in Parliament. Under the Scheduled Tribes and Other Traditional Forest Dwellers Recognition of Forest Rights Act 2006, more than 32 lakh claims have been filed and nearly 13 lakh titles have been distributed. To ensure the educational empowerment of minority communities, my government is implementing 3 scholarship schemes with 30% of the funds in each scheme earmarked for girl students. An amount of over 880 crores of rupees has been disbursed as scholarships to more than 55 lakh students till 31st December in 2012-13. To encourage students belonging to minority communities to take up higher studies, an amount of rupees 66 crore has been released under the Maulana Azad National Fellow Scheme. The Waqf Act is being amended and Waqf Development Corporation will be set up for development and protection of Waqf properties. Under Prime Minister's new 15-point program, the effort is to ensure 15% of the targets and outlays of the identified schemes benefit the minority communities. For financial inclusions, the flow of priority sector credit to minorities at the national level during 2012-13 reached 1,71,960 crores of rupees as on 30th September 2012, which was more than 15% of the total priority sector's lending. As promised by my predecessor last year, a new bill for the elimination of the manual scavenging and rehabilitation of the mutual scavengers was introduced in the Lok Sabha in September 2012. A centrally sponsored scholarship scheme has been introduced for the scheduled caste students studying in class 9 and 10. It is expected to benefit about 40 lakh students. My government has created a separate Department of Disability Affairs. The government recently launched the Rajiv Gandhi National Fellowship for students with disabilities to enable them to pursue higher education. For holistic development of children, the government has approved the restructuring and strengthening of the Integrated Child Development Scheme during the 12th plan, with a total outlay of Rs 1,23,580 crore. My government has enacted a path-breaking legislation, the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, which provides for stringent punishment for persons who commit or abet such offences. Honourable members, for ensuring a safe and secure environment for women in workplaces, the government introduced the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Bill 2012 in Parliament. The bill has been passed by the Lok Sabha. My government is deeply concerned about the incidence of the sexual offences against women. After considering the recommendations of the Justice J.S. Verma Committee, the government has promulgated an ordinance amending the criminal laws to provide for stringent punishment for heinous sexual offences against women. The government has also begun to implement a series of administrative measures to improve the safety and security of women in the country. The National Mission for Empowerment of Women will implement a pilot project in public hospitals in 100 districts called One-Stop Crisis Center, a specialized facility for providing all necessary services for women subject to violence. Honourable members, the midday meal program today covers around 11 crore children in over 12 lakh schools. Several new initiatives have been taken by the government to make it more effective. My government is committed to expanding coverage under this program to pre-primary schools in a progressive manner. My government is considering a strategic shift in central funding to states for higher education through a new program called the Rashtriya Uchchatara Shiksha Abhiyan. This program will encourage states to develop comprehensive higher education plans in an integrated manner to address the issues of expansion, equity and excellence. My government has taken major steps in accelerating our skill development efforts. The number of ITIs that stood at 5,114 in 2006-07 more than doubled to 10,344 by the end of 2012. Honourable members, in January 2013, we completed 2 years without detection of even a single case of wild polio virus. This is the longest polio-free period in the country ever since eradication efforts were launched. In health infrastructure, over 43,500 new constructions and upgradation works of health facilities were taken up in the period of 2005-06 to 2012-13, and nearly 70,000 additional beds have been added in the government health institutions. During the same period, around 1.45 lakh Medicare staff has been added in various states under the National Rural Health Mission. To overcome the shortage of nursing staff, government has sanctioned over 200 nursing schools in remote and underserved districts in the last 2 years. To increase the availability of doctors and specialists, several reforms were initiated, resulting in a record increase of 46% of MBBS seats and 70% postgraduate seats in the last 5 years. An overarching national health mission covering both rural and urban areas is being finalized. Over 1.1 crore women benefited from the Janani Suraksha Yojana during 2011-12. Under the Janani Shishu Suraksha Karyakram, pregnant women are entitled to absolute free care in public health institutions. To further improve child death, my government has launched the Rashtriya Bal Swasth Karyakram for screening of children below 18 years for 30 different types of disease, disorders, deficiencies and disabilities. This national initiative will eventually cover around 270 million children across the country. Due to reforms of the government, there have been significant reduction in the maternal mortality rate, infant mortality rate and total fertility rate in recent years. Life expectancy at birth has increased from 61.9 years in the period of 1996-2000 to 66.1 years in the period of 2006-2010. The National AIDS Control Program has been recognized globally as a success story. The program has reduced annual new HIV infections by 57% in the last decade. Adult HIV prevalence has decreased from 0.40 in 2000 to 0.27 in 2011. Since the launch of Rashtriya Swasth Bima Yojana, more than 3.35 crore smart cards have been issued and more than 43.26 lakh persons have availed hospitalization facility under this scheme. This insurance scheme has been extended to building and other construction workers, street vendors, bidi workers and other categories. Honourable members, lack of adequate and quality infrastructure is a major hurdle in the fast growth of our economy. Therefore, it is imperative that infrastructure deficit is overcome and adequate investment takes place. Government has taken two major steps to ensure the impediments in this area are eliminated. The first is setting up of the Cabinet Committee on Investment to expedite decisions on approvals and clearances for implementation of projects. The second is the creation of infrastructure debt funds to raise low-cost, long-term resources for refinancing infrastructure projects.